So I put out a post asking for questions because it had been a while since I did a Q&A, and boy, you all delivered. You've all sent me so many great questions that when I started editing the video down, it ended up being over an hour long. So I thought it would be best to split up into probably 3 parts. So this is part 1. This is answering questions that are all kind of about me, like more personal questions like my favorite composers, pieces, stuff to play, musical experiences, things like that. So it should be a fun one. Hope you enjoy. Here we go. What's your favorite fandom to play and why? I'm not sure if this is to play as a gamer or to play as a musician, but the answer is probably the same for both anyway. Musically, Zelda and Final Fantasy are definitely the most fun to play. It's the music that I gravitate towards the most, that feels the most natural for me to play as a violinist. Like, there are definitely some fandoms that just are not written well for translating into the things that I do, and that's why I don't do them. But Zelda and Final Fantasy in particular, Chrono Trigger 2, just look at all the stuff that I've done a lot of. Fire Emblem, Octopath Travelers, Blade. These are all franchises that are all like really gorgeous stuff for string writing, really lends itself well. But, Zelda and Final Fantasy are my favorite franchises to play. So recording them and playing them on the violin is like especially, meaningful for me. So I really enjoy that a lot. What are some genres or soundtracks you'd like to try but haven't done at all? I'm assuming this means that I haven't covered at all that I would like to do. I feel like when there's a soundtrack I like, I do it. Even if it's just one song, I'll pick one song from the soundtrack and I'll do it. Maybe that's less the case now because I don't want to do songs that I know no one's going to watch on YouTube because of the algorithm. But generally, if I like something, I'll do it. The biggest reasons I wouldn't are because maybe the genre, maybe the genre is like difficult for me to do. But even then, so that was the case with a lot of battle tracks. Like I didn't do Cool X theme for a long time because I was like, how am I going to make this work? Doing stuff like the Octopath Traveler battle tracks. But then I met Rahul, who's collaborated with me on drum set for a couple things, and I was able to do the Octopath battle themes with Ro Panuganti. So it's like, okay, I've done this once, and if I want to do it again, I can. I feel like there's not a whole lot of unconquered stuff here that I would like to do. Oh, you know what? I've always been interested in lo-fi. That's one thing I've always wanted to try, but I have no idea how I would do that. I don't know the first thing about starting that, but that would be neat to figure out one day. But that's all that's jumping to mind right now. What's your favorite piece to play? I'm really bad at choosing favorites. Seriously. I really like playing orchestral violin stuff, chamber music. If we're talking classical music, I love Brahms and Prokofiev and Ravel. If we're talking VGM, I love Zelda music and Final Fantasy. These days I am just all about Final Fantasy VII. My entire brain is just if my brain was a pie chart, 90% of it would be Final Fantasy VII right now. So yeah, that's kind of what's on my mind these days. How long have you been playing the violin? I started when I was 6 years old. I've been playing for more than 30 years, so you can figure out how old that makes me. What kind of music does your spouse like to listen to? Does he have the same taste in music and video games as you? This isn't a question about me. Okay, so he does not have the same taste in games as me. We are basically polar opposites. I like Zelda and JRPGs and cute Nintendo games, and he likes AAA games like The Last of Us, or especially things like Dark Souls, Elden Ring, really big, brooding open world games that never end. So we don't have the same taste there. However, we did play Final Fantasy VII Remake together. That was one example of a game that we could both enjoy, that we were able to play together. So that was nice. But I did not play Rebirth with him because I didn't have the patience. I didn't have the patience to not play that game for 12 hours a day. What kind of music does he listen to? I did ask him and he had no idea what to tell me either. I'm really bad at labeling genres myself as far as what I like to listen to, and it's a bit eclectic, and I think he's the same way. When we go on road trips, his playlists are, it's a little bit of everything. I don't know how else to put it, honestly. How do you manage to keep releasing songs with a family, especially with a baby? Color me impressed. Thank you. It's hard. But I don't know, it's challenging in a different way than I expected it would be, I suppose. The most challenging thing about it is the unpredictability, so she goes to daycare twice a week, which is not a lot, but it definitely helps because I can say okay, I'll have this day to record and I'll have this day to film, or I can, use it to like have dedicated time to work. Usually, otherwise, I'll work while she's napping. She takes one nap a day, but also like sometimes it's hard for me to work if I know I can get interrupted at any time. The truth is that prior to having a child, like I used to waste so much time. And like when we first started getting a babysitter sometimes, or I was starting to like ease back into like doing any kind of music work, it was like the second the help was here and I had time for myself, it was just like, bam, focus mode. And I would get so much done. Whereas before having a kid, if I had the entire day to work, I would waste a lot of time, watching TV or just procrastinating. And now that this is more of my routine, the focus is not as laser sharp as it was. But I still got a lot done. Yeah, the other thing is that I don't have a job outside of this right now. I'm basically a stay-at-home mom. So anytime that I'm not caring for her, I'm devoting to my own personal music projects. I'm not like really doing much client work now. I've done some gigs since I've been back, but it's been really stressful because, like I said, the unpredictability. So even though I know she's going to be at daycare twice a week, maybe she wakes up sick and then she can't go, and then I get sick, and then this whole cascade of things that results in an entire week where I can't work, which is totally fine, except that if I was working for a client, that would be a problem. Whereas at least if I'm just working for myself, I can be like, whatever, just temper my expectations. But to give you an example, y'all remember that like dream collab I did with Square Enix for Star Ocean? I mean, they could not have asked me at a worse time, but I still had to say yes because it's Square Enix. Like, what was I going to do? Say no? But I would not have been able to do it at all if my mom hadn't been staying with us for those 2 weeks, because first my baby was sick. She was really sick. Then I got sick. And the reason my mom was staying with us was because my husband was in a really stressful time at work. So he was basically working overtime every single day for like a month. Yeah, it was already like the most stressful time ever. Then to also have to be creating a very difficult arrangement while having a sick child and being sick myself. And let me tell you, when I'm sick, I am sick. Some people do well when they're sick. I'm not one of those people. I'm like dead when I'm sick. So it's especially hard to be a mom when I'm sick. But yeah, it's just, I've learned it's more about tempering my expectations so that I don't feel resentful when I don't have the time that I expect. Because I can get a lot done. It just doesn't usually happen on a schedule, or, it has to be flexible. That's all. Would you consider going back to conventions? Yeah, but kind of, on the note of motherhood, like I'm the primary caretaker of my daughter, and we don't have family nearby. My husband works, so I can't just up and leave. And to be honest, I had gone to MagFest for many years, but towards the end, last time I went was January of 2020, I was starting to already get overwhelmed by MagFest. It's a lot bigger than it was when I first started going. And as I've gotten older, I find it hard to be in that kind of environment. It's really expensive. There's a lot of work to plan and go. So, I loved going, but I'm not sure. Right now, there's no way I could go anyway, but I don't know. We'll see what the situation is like in a few years, I suppose. What was your favorite live performance to participate in, and why? I love this question. I love telling these stories. Okay, so there could be many answers to this question, but I feel like the times that I've gotten to perform in video game music concerts have definitely been the highlights of my career. So, like, for instance, I think it was 2012, I had the just crazy serendipitous dumb luck opportunity to work on and perform for the Symphony of the Goddesses chamber music concert in New York City at Nintendo World. So first off, getting paid to write Zelda arrangements that were being signed off by Koji Kondo was already a dream. But I also got to fly up to New York City to play with a bunch of these amazing A-list musicians in a small, it was like string quartet plus bass and flute and harp, very small group. And that was just so rewarding and fun to play with them. Of course, Zelda's like my favorite franchise. Going to Nintendo World was so fun, but like the thing about playing for VGM concerts is like the energy in the audience is just unreal compared to any other type of concert. There was a line starting to form since the morning of that concert. Like, people were waiting in line for hours. It was jam-packed full of people. They had like a little rope barricade around us because there were so many people there, just like sitting on the floor. And of course it was super loud and rowdy. Everyone's so excited. And then the second we started to play, it was like you could just like hear a pin drop, the hush over the crowd out of reverence for this music. And I think we also didn't really introduce the pieces as we were playing them, maybe, or most of them anyway. And so we would start to play, and then people would recognize what we were playing. And like 2 chords into Fairy Fountain, someone gasped once they realized what it was. And I'm just thinking, oh, yes, I feel it too. And it's just unreal. That kind of energy, you just can't get that anywhere else. People asked for my autograph after. It was just incredible. And also the other experience I like to mention when talking about this is, I think it was in 2013, I got the chance to, again, like the dumb luck opportunity to get to play for Distant Worlds in Miami. And I say that because like I grew up in Florida, but I wasn't living there at the time. But one of my friends from there was involved in the contracting. And so she knew I was a super fan and asked if I would want to fly down for the concert. I said yes. So I flew down to play for this Final Fantasy concert, which also coincidentally, Kristen Nagus was playing. And that was where we met in person for the first time. But yeah, so I got to fly down and like sneak into this orchestra basically. And I'm sitting at the back of the first violins, mere feet in front of where Uematsu was sitting for the rehearsal, for the entire rehearsal. I'm just vibrating in my chair like, oh my gosh, he's right behind me. And then the concert was just like electric. There's just nothing like playing to a huge auditorium of rabid video game music fans. I mean, especially when I myself have connection to this music, of course. I mean, I've played a lot of classical music concerts that have felt, soul altering or extremely emotional or whatever, but I don't know. There's something about this type of audience and, being able to connect with them on such like a visceral level of like this musical like love and understanding that you just don't get anywhere else. We played One Winged Angel. It was like, we didn't have choir, right? They did the thing where they encouraged the audience to sing along, right? But then Uematsu comes out and he's just like going back and forth across the stage, like hyping up the crowd. And of course, everyone knows all the words. Everyone's just like, screaming their lungs out. It was just unbelievable. And by the way, I'm also like right by the edge, mere feet away from where Uematsu is like walking back and forth, just like playing One Winged Angel with the master just walking by. I mean, it was just like, I have no words for it, except for maybe like electric really feels like it was electric. The energy in the crowd is just unbelievable. And so, yeah. Those are the 2 examples I always think of, and I love to tell those stories. So thank you for asking. Those are such good memories for me, and like I said, like definite highlights in my entire career, classical or otherwise. What is your favorite song? Purely for enjoyment of listening, not your favorite to play or the most nostalgic, or favorite album, band, soundtrack, genre if a single is too hard to pick. Yeah, I'm really bad at picking favorites. For the enjoyment of listening, like the stuff that I listen to the most, my taste is pretty eclectic as far as that goes. Like I listen to a lot of VGM, obviously. I listen to a lot of like Latin pop, I guess you could call it, or Latin dance music. One band that I listen to a lot is called Kings of Convenience. I don't know why, I just really like that vibe, I guess. So that's a playlist I go to often. Favorite classical composer? Prokofiev. Don't even have to think about it. Prokofiev has always been hands down my favorite composer. Other composers I like, Brahms, Ravel, Rachmaninoff, Poulenc. Am I missing anyone important? Probably. Best pet that isn't a cat or dog. So in terms of pets that I have had, like I used to have a parakeet and I used to have a bunny and I also had a mouse for a while. I feel like I can't say anything else though, because how would I know if they're actually a good pet or not, or if it's just something that seems like it would be a good pet? Like I always thought like something like a chinchilla or sugar glider would be really cute, but I don't know. The truth is, I grew up with dogs, and I used to think I wasn't really a pet person, but then I realized that, no, I'm just a cat person. I love my cats so much. Cake or pie? Cake. I don't really like pie, but it's probably because I don't really like fruit. I'm sorry. But there was this place in Nashville that used to make this amazing mac and cheese pie. Oh, it was so good. I was so sad when they closed. If someone threw a violin at you in public, what would be the top 3 songs you would play on the spot? This is kind of my worst nightmare, to be honest. I do not like being put on the spot, so much so that I would never bring violins to family gatherings or anything because I hate when your family's just like, play something for us. And I'm like, I don't know. Even when I go to get my violin adjusted or something, I have to like choose a song ahead of time because it's really hard for me to think of stuff on the spot. So honestly, what I would say is like, I would ask for requests. Tell me what to play or give me some kind of idea. Don't make me decide off the top of my head, please. Did you ever play Final Fantasy Tactics? Do you know any songs from the title? I have not played it. I've heard lots of things about it. You'd think I would have played it because I do really enjoy, well, Fire Emblem Three Houses was my first tactics game, and I also really enjoyed Triangle Strategy, so I should play it. But I don't know, is it even on modern consoles now? Like, I don't know what version is good to play. I'll get around it eventually. If you have any ideas, put them in the suggestion form for me, please. Thanks. What's your opinion on speedrunning? I think it's cool. I think people who do it are very skilled, and that's very cool how they're able to do it. It's not something that I would have interest in doing myself, because that's not like what I enjoy about gaming myself, but there are some games where like if I've played it like a million times, then maybe I start to put challenges for myself. So I call it speedrunning for myself, but it's obviously not like a real speedrun. But for example, I would play Super Mario RPG every year on my birthday, and you know, that's a game that's not very long, and so I would kind of challenge myself to see how quick I could get through it. It wasn't like a speed run, it was just like a very efficient regular run. I just call it speed running just to see how fast I can get through it, because I already have like every path and thing memorized at this point. Who are your favorite VGM musicians? Oh, you know, they're all my friends, right? Like, don't make me choose favorites of my friends. Oh gosh, that'd be terrible. I'm sorry. Okay, so the thing is, like, I feel like if there's someone whose work I really admire, who's a VGM musician, I probably have already tried to find a way to collaborate with them. And yeah, sure, there's some people that I really admire that I would love to collaborate with, and maybe I can't because our styles are too different or something. But for the most part, I feel like, yeah, if there's someone who I really respect and I'm a fan of, I do try to find a way to collaborate with them in some way or another. So look down my big list of, you know, collaboration projects and see who I've worked with, because all the people I've worked with are amazing, and yeah, they're all my favorites. I don't want to choose, so please don't make me. What is your favorite soundtrack to a game you don't like to play? You know, I really like what I've heard of the Hollow Knight soundtrack. I mean, I haven't listened to it a whole bunch. I'm trying to think of what I don't like to play in order to figure this out. The two examples I always give when I say about like listening to soundtracks for games I would never play are Dear Esther, which has a beautiful string quartet and piano type vibes soundtrack by Jessica Curry, which is brilliant, and Echochrome, which is also a entirely live string quartet soundtrack, which is just wild. But the game is a puzzle game. I really don't do puzzle games. I tried it, but I was like, nah, I'll just listen to the music. So generally, I don't know. I suppose I do like listening to games in context, which is not to say I don't like soundtracks without the context. I just don't seek them out. Usually, if I happen to come across some music from a game that I wouldn't play that I hear, I'm like, oh, that's good. Sure, but like I don't usually actively seek out music from games I wouldn't play unless there's some kind of like draw for me. So for example, like a soundtrack that's entirely live string quartet is something that would interest me to check out. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. I really had a lot of fun answering these questions, and I'll see you all next time.